This is the Infinite Receiving podcast, helping conscious leaders tap into a wealth of abundance across all areas of your life and business. I'm Susie Ashworth, and I'll be sharing with you how you can upgrade your reality through quantum transformation, because you are ready for infinite receiving. So, love, I am really looking forward to you being able to listen to this episode. It is with my friend and also mentor from afar, Dr. Erin. She is an incredible trauma specialist. And I think what's interesting with Dr. Erin and her work is that you can see so much of what she does and why she has done it, has chosen this path, comes from her own life experience early on. And at the same time, she has done so much work that she is such a clear channel for supporting people in moving through the experiences, the darkness, the shadows, the trauma that keep people bound to their past instead of being able to create the future that they deserve. In this interview, we hear the real mix, the real kind of fire and powerhouse of the businesswoman, and then the real vulnerability of a woman who is still in the work and doing her best to really recognize the humanity of all people. It's a really beautiful interview, and I'm sure you're going to love it. So, without any further ado, let's get on with the episode. Hello, 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 you gorgeous human being. It is Susie Ashworth here, and you are listening to the Infinite Receiving podcast. And I am excited to come to you today. I promise I will not sing the whole episode, but what a juicy one. I have got my friend and fellow change maker. Like, I just actually want to do a little bow down to you because interacting with you the first time I met you, I can honestly say changed my life. It wasn't fun, it wasn't pretty, there was some ugly crying, but there was also a liberation that was activated that I am truly and eternally grateful for. So, thank you for being you and all of the work that you do. Welcome to the Infinite Receiving podcast, Dr. Erin. How the devil are you?
Woo! I infinitely receive your goodness, your blessings, your beauty, your divinity. I'm so excited. It's early in Los Angeles, and I was like, like I popped out of bed, like, yeah, I get to hang with my girlfriends and have some deep conversations. There's nothing better than that, right? I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. So, at the point of recording this, it is early in 2024, and I am curious, how did you come into the year? How were you feeling after 2023?
That's a great question. I mean, the last couple of years were pretty intense for me. I don't know about for you, but I was very isolated in Los Angeles over the pandemic, and it started to really actually mentally impact me. And I was wanting to leave like everybody else, but you couldn't even go anywhere in California. So I went to Palm Beach in Florida and was a nomad for a year. So coming back into this year, I finally got my stuff out of storage after 2 years. So let me tell you, in the holidays, like all holidays, was super intense. We can get into that. My family had some massive things going on, and I feel so stabilized coming into this year. People have a lot of fear, and I have zero fear. I feel like this is a year of 8 of infinity, so infinite abundance for sure. And I just feel like there's years you just know is going to be like, okay, this is gonna be a master class, and there's years, and I have felt so in my abundance and so in flow, and so yeah, and so it is. How about you?
2023 was a humbling year, I think, for me. I think that both personally and professionally, it was challenging. I had, it's just not what I was expecting. And I think after so many years of just feeling like I am on top of the world, come get me, 2023 was a bit like of a little slap. And so I was very intentional at the end of the year of really extracting all of the goodness, because actually there was a lot of goodness. But I don't know about you, but it's very easy to find yourself when not all of the boxes are being ticked, for you to focus on the things that are not going well and kind of diminish the things that are beautiful. And so the end of the year was really about tuning into all of the things that are super beautiful, extracting the lessons from the things that were hard, and then drawing a very clear line and letting 2023 go so I could come into 2024 feeling incredible. And I feel it, baby. And
Feel it, baby. And
hearing you
I think
say,
there's a big pivot. I think that all of us have been online so long, and if you're listening in right now, I feel like I feel like there's roads, there's like forks in the road right now. And I wonder if you feel the same way, but I feel like it's like you either have to fully commit to the online world, or it's like there's people that are like, oh, this is really dragging me down, and or committing to in person, kind of more real relationships in person, or like where you're going to be, like where you actually, what's your lane going to be, what place in social media, the specific one social media, right? Like I feel like we're all having to like hone down, and spirit, our higher self, is like, pick, baby. You know what I mean? I'm giving you all these options, so many options, but you kind of need to pick your lane. You know what I mean? You feel the same thing?
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting because I have been thinking about what my big vision is. And ultimately, my big vision is to have an events company and really all of my work be in person. It doesn't feel like that is it right now, but I'm sowing the seeds. That is what I'm creating, and that is what I am visioning. So maybe that's my
Yeah, I think we have
fork.
to each ask ourselves, where do I shine the most? Where is it that I get more energy instead of having to do something in our business? And that's what we're teaching, but we're constantly, even as the leaders, we're having to hone our skills and be able to pivot over and over and go, I tried that, no, not so much, right? And I think we're very similar. I think that we shine on stage, in person, doing the real work. Online is beautiful, but I think there's certain people that just really shine there. And each of us, our divine right is to shine. That's who we are. So whatever that may be, whether it be one-on-one with clients, whether that be in big groups, whether that be, writing books and putting those books out, and whatever it is, wherever you shine is really the only work to do, is to do that deep work and discover what you truly love. And that's really all we have to do.
You
Easier said
just
than done.
spoke to one of the pillars of infinite receiving, which is knowing your unique and infinite greatness. And when we're willing to lean into that and own it, we open up a whole new level of receiving. So thank you for co signing that with me. So you said that it was a tough holiday season for your family. What was going on there?
Whoa, let's see. So I'll just say it here. My mother went missing. She literally went missing. And we were like, what happened? We were calling the police. My mom will call back if I call her, and she's always struggled with alcohol. And I'm holding this knowing that I am my mom. My mom is me. So I'm not saying like dramatizing or exposing anything that my family knows. I say everything. Like, it's like I pretty much like am very transparent. And she went missing. And she basically had to go to the hospital for alcohol poisoning and ended up going into a detox, and we couldn't find her. And it pulled up, after, as you know, doing all this work as leaders, we do so much of I really believe if you want to manifest and have that infinite abundance, the trauma is the core work to really release the limited beliefs. But something like this occurring brought up a lot of the traumas over the course of my life, because it was something that my mother's battled with her whole life. So that was happening. Meanwhile, which I don't know when I don't know if I can say something on here because I'm not supposed to say something. I don't know when this is coming out.
It's
I'll
coming out
say it
soon.
here, because I can't shout
Exclusive.
it out. So I wonder if I don't want to get in trouble. I found out I'm going to be a grandmother. So I had this, oh yeah. So I had this whole like thing Like it was like the universe is like, and meanwhile I'm moving into like back to my hood, beautiful life. And like this is the point. Okay, the point of this is that if you're out there and you're like, I want to make my dreams come true, and you have this fantasy that one day it's all gonna be perfect, that is the
Mm.
biggest lie. That the true, and I'm getting chills right now, the true manifesting and the true awakening to your infinite is to receive the dark, the light, and everything. And when you have non resistance, because even with my mother, I knew she was held by the divine, that whatever she was going through, she needed to go through at whatever level. And she's an amazing woman. And it doesn't make her a bad person, right? And everything, as whether it be in your personal life, professional life, it's all one thing, that we have to embrace the light and the dark. And so life is getting more and more intense. And we have to know and be okay with best case and worst case scenario, and always know that to love life is to love life in all of its dimensions. Just like unconditionally loving ourselves, we have to love the dark and the light. And to love our businesses, we have to love the hard things and the beautiful things. And I believe that's really the secret to life, is knowing that it's all of it. And we've chosen to be in this relative universe, and it's this incredible game, and it's hard, and it's freaking amazing at the same time. So yeah, it was a lot going on in the holidays. So I hope this doesn't go out, because my son's like, don't tell anybody. We're not telling anybody until the 20th week. So if you hear this, just don't say it on social media to me or anyone, because
Yeah.
it's only for your audience.
Well, first off, huge congratulations. That's a big deal. How do you feel about stepping into that chapter of your life? Does that feel exciting?
So I was born in this lifetime very spiritually gifted, but we're all gifted. We all have psychic abilities. We all have clairvoyancy. We all have all these abilities. But for some reason, this lifetime, I was gifted really coming in, and then I shut down all my abilities. So I had a grandchild that's been with me for a couple of years, speaking to me and coming into my consciousness, and it's a girl.
Wow.
And so when I found out it's not a girl, I was like, and please don't clip out this to go on social media, because I'll really be into it. So I was like, well, I don't feel the soul yet. So I started meditating on it and asking Source, why can't I feel the spirit? And Source said, well, the baby comes in around 120 days, which is true, which is exactly what we teach in spirituality. And the soul has not been chosen yet, or the soul has not chosen the mother yet, meaning that it's all based upon the intention of the mother and the intention and karma of the family. So that's why I say in like Kundalini Yoga, you do a very specific practice for 120 days, because you want to set the most purity and the highest consciousness for that soul to be chosen into the most pure state. Because if it's not pure, then it's going to come in with the exact karma of whatever's there in the mother and in the collective of the family. So I'm just excited. I mean, I'm excited for all of life. It's all just growth. It's all experience. It's all advancing our consciousness.
I think that one, that's beautiful. I'm so happy for you. And I think that it's really important for people to hear that you're not getting it wrong when you're experiencing challenge. You're not getting it wrong because some of life is hard. Like, that is the path, and that is the game of life. And your capacity and willingness to release resistance to the things that are the most challenging will ultimately serve you, arguably, in the greatest way, because it invites you to get closer to the connection to yourself, get closer to connection to source, to learn the lessons that challenge is there for you. For like, there's so many gifts in the darkness, and I think that a lot of people feel that we're doing the spiritual work in order to avoid the darkness.
I'm totally right. That's so fascinating. Yeah, they're like, "What are you trying to seek? What, are you ever going to get there?" It's like, "What do you mean?" Like, it's the whole journey of always expanding, always growing, for sure. I love that. That's such a great point.
I am curious. Your mother has dealt with alcoholism well, at least the length of your life. How did you process things in the beginning? Like, how did it impact your relationship with her? And ultimately, how did you get to a place where you could really still see her light and her spirit despite this disease and the impact that it has on everybody around her?
I love this question. And the reason why is because I work and train, as you know, many, many people across the globe in trauma processes and in spiritual subconscious work and stuff. And I always say you're only as healed as you are with your relationship with your parents, because they're really kind of like this ultimate place where we justify that we can like judge them and, whatever, be a victim to our parents and put boundaries on them and all this stuff. So when I grew up in somewhat of a hippie commune in the hills of Santa Barbara. My parents had gotten divorced. They were just, they were young. My father went off and had another family. My mother really struggled with a lot of codependency and alcoholism. I didn't really realize she was an alcoholic. I just thought it's just turbulent and chaotic. And so what happened is I began to really think that this was my normal. My normal was one, we had no money. We went to the thrift store growing up. We didn't barely even have food in the house. I remember in elementary school being like, Mom, please, stop the party. I have to wake up early in the morning. It was like, I thought this was just like normal. Junior high, she was at the bar, so there was no food in the house. And my sister and I would go panhandle on the streets for money, for food. Like we literally didn't have any food. And then I just got super codependent myself through my teens and 20s, even into my early 30s, because I watched my mother. What is alcoholism versus what is, it's all one thing. It's all this trauma that Al pictures in people's lives of roller coasters in their relationships. Their health is up and down because they're emotionally up and down. They're stressed out, right? They are financially turbulent, or even if they have a lot of money, it's not a healthy relationship with money, regardless if they don't have any money, or even if they could be multimillionaires, they wouldn't be healthy with it, right? So all of it is just an output. And it doesn't matter if someone's dealing with alcoholism or codependency or workaholism or any of it. It's all one thing, which is all based on of not having self-worth, because it's based on really the division in mind of yourself to source, yourself to all of life. And so how did that impact me? I mean, in every asset and facet of my life, every relationship, my inability to complete cycles, my inability to do everything. And then I was date raped in high school. I had bulimia from 17 to 20, and I thought all my problems would be solved if I got married. So I got married, and I had a full-term stillborn at the age of 22, which was really, talk about a trauma, but was one of the greatest blessings of my life, because I was, the next day after giving birth to his body, in the mortician's house and looking down, realizing my baby's gone, but his body's here. We're not these bodies. So trauma ends up becoming the best blessing of our life, because it is our story. And as we know, it's what helps us get our niche in the marketplace, because if we've overcome that one thing, other people relate to us. And that's where that blessing gave me my entire mission of my life. So again, it's the paradox. What's a blessing and what's a curse? It's how you look at it. It's all perception. And when you awaken to the truth, you realize it's all blessings. There's nothing that's not a blessing.
So, did you have to forgive your mother? Did you have to go through that process, or did you get to this awareness of really there's nothing to forgive? And perhaps I can even be grateful, because without her showing up the way that she did, I wouldn't be here. Like, there's no doubt. Like, without that background,
She's
you
a great
would not
teacher.
be here today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that
So,
there's a place where you go, okay, I'm angry at my parent, my mother. Then I went to I forgive her. Then it went to, will I accept her? And then
mm,
it goes to, oh, I want to actually love her unconditionally. And there's a
wow.
big, big difference, because most people, if they're
Yes.
lucky, they even get to, I forgive you and I accept you as you are. But there's a whole other level of like, can I actually not just love you unconditionally from afar, but can I actually treat you how I would choose to really abundantly love you, regardless of how you're showing up in my life?
Oh my goodness, that is huge.
Huge.
And
Mhm.
actually, when I think about my own relationship with my biological mother, it I'm on the I'm on the space in the spectrum of acceptance, but not always,
Mhm.
you know.
It's a
And there's
big difference.
still a
It's a
huge,
huge, big growth.
yeah, there's
And also,
still
we
a
know that
huge level.
when you get to the place of realizing that we're not born of our parents, we're born of source, that we are our parents. that they're just showing us the darkest side. We wouldn't even be able to see that side if it weren't in us. So wherever we judge somebody else is actually the part within ourselves that we don't want to look at.
Yeah, don't want to accept that. I
That's a,
don't think
like
that
the
about.
no, I'm not
Yeah.
like that. What are you talking about?
I'm like, it is my dad's fault. Um, um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and this is the type of conversation which ultimately led to a big breakthrough, like the real truth. And are you willing to accept not the truth of who they are, not the truth about what they've done, but the truth of who you are and the truth of who you are being right now? And awareness is one thing, but then choosing to do things differently again there's a big gap between those two places.
Yeah, that's why
How?
we call it being a spiritual practitioner. Being a
Yeah,
spiritual practitioner and practicing every day to live the principles of the highest principles is for me the greatest practice and the biggest muscle to build. You know, every single day, are you able to, not judge people? Are you able to not make people wrong? Are you able to see them as the miracle that they are? Are you able to love people when the mirror isn't shining back? And it doesn't mean you put yourself in harm's way per se, but it's a serious practice. And I think it helps with knowing there's two truths. Okay, this is something that really changed my whole perspective and helped me understand. There's ultimate truth, which is that energy cannot be destroyed. We are one, we are born of divine. And there's relative truth, which means, you know, what works for my mom might not work for me. What works for, your girlfriend in their relationship or in what kind of, their level of abundance is a different definition of what you have. And that's what we get to celebrate. We get to celebrate that each person gets to have their own truth, that they get to say, who's to say it's bad to drink a lot in this lifetime? I mean, really and truly, it's a relative thing. Some people might say it causes chaos, and some people might say it brings people whatever. It's relative. So who am I to judge this? Who's the culture to judge this? Other than, of course, if it impacts through the law and things like that, we make agreements. But we have to start celebrating everyone's truth. That's why we're seeing it in the breakdown right now in so many things, and in, like, identity, the sexual identity and everything. Like, who are we to say what's right or wrong for people? And even relationships, I see the worst advice ever online about relationships. It should be this way, women should do this, men should pay for it, like all these things. It's like, that is all not good advice, you guys. It's about birthing your individual truth. You should never give advice to other people. It's about helping us discover the truth within each and every one of us so that we can celebrate that, as long as it's not hurting somebody else, right? Yeah.
okay, and that caveat, as long as it is not hurting somebody else, is the boundary, which I also think is challenging, because depending on your context, depending on your trauma, depending on your story, what one person is going to just shake off and it be nothing, another person is like, that was the most harmful thing you could possibly ever say to me. And I think that this is a very interesting place to be in the online world right now, because I don't think that people have ever been more aware that most people, really everybody, is living with some kind of trauma, whether it is a little t trauma or a big T trauma. Somebody has had that experience of that. And now there is, and it's so important for us to be aware of what we are carrying around with us. But where does responsibility lie when it comes to somebody saying something or doing something that activates somebody else's trauma? Because in the online space, when you're working with hundreds, maybe thousands of people, like I said, one innocuous statement to somebody is the most harmful thing in the world. Where does responsibility lie?
Sure. So let's back it up a little bit, because I think it's a really important question, because most people, I'm sure, that listen to your podcast and follow you are into manifesting and, abundance and everything. So we want to know that what happened for me is I realized when I was starting to do all my spiritual work and starting to get into manifesting, I was in Landmark Forum in 1999. It's been many decades for me in this industry. Right? I've worked with some of the top celebrities and CEOs, and I've trained thousands of people around the world. Okay, so the thing that I realized was here I was, this kind of broken young girl, no money, financially, emotionally broke, spiritually broke. And I started getting into manifesting. I was like, does this work or does this not work? And started manifesting some things in some areas and some things didn't work at all. So I was like, what is it? So diving deep, 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 coming to realize that the core thing is trauma. And the reason why is this, okay? Trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens within you. Okay. So it doesn't matter if it's a big T. Most people think if I was in a war or a car accident, I have trauma. Trauma can be somebody looks at you cross-eyed on the jungle gym as a little kid. Trauma can be, right? It's where basically trauma is when something happens or doesn't happen and you get upset inside because you put meaning on it and you have a high frequency that is raising, and that frequency is actually the communication of your entire body and to the entire cosmos. And in that high frequency state, you declare a lie. I'm not enough. Something's wrong with me. I'll never trust again. I'll never love, whatever that is. We all have these commands, okay? And what happens is these are energetic charges, and they actually tag the DNA and they strangulate your DNA. And they actually are stopping the manifestation. Okay, so imagine you have the sun, like you're manifesting, the sun's coming down, and between you and the sun is a bunch of clouds. That's like the limited beliefs and the stuck negative patterns at a subconscious level. Or you have the spout of water out of your sink, but it gets all that grit in there and the water can't come out. So that's why you're trying to manifest sometimes, but it's not working. And you're like, why? What's going on, right? It's because we have to clear out that subconscious, okay? So coming back to your question of how responsible are we for other people, right? The truth is that people have their filters. Once they have that trauma, the Maya, the veil comes over consciousness. That's why we can usually remember before like 3 or 4 years old. I mean, you can't remember before 3 or 4 years old because actually when we started believing the limited beliefs. So the veil of life comes over. And then basically we're walking through life in this filter. So everybody has their filter of what's their identity, basically, other than the I am. So my identity was I'm not lovable, right? Something's wrong with me. Love equals pain, right? I have to work super hard. I'm alone. I'm alone in this lifetime. These are all my filters that I look through. So it doesn't matter what someone says out in the world, I'm going to still get triggered by anything to justify and make that case. We call it the lens, right? It's like a case, and you're constantly looking no matter what someone does. And you've been with people like that. No matter what they do, they're going to find some way that you hurt them. You know what I mean? And you didn't do anything. You're like, why do they see it like this? So yeah, we have responsibility in that we want to treat people like it's a golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. But that's between you and your own karma. Okay? Universal law will just reflect back whatever we put out. So we can't really, I mean, yes, we want to take responsibility of our own karma, but what somebody else interprets that is their own interpretation. We have no control over that. So we can't be responsible for that from their perspective, but we are responsible from our own karma of what we're creating in our own karma that reflects back. I hope that
So
answers. It's a lot.
it is important for you to be intentional. You have to be as clear in your intent as possible. And at the same time, the responsibility lies with each person's individual. If something is cutting you to the quick, that's a sign that there is some healing to do. There is, yeah. Does that feel fair?
You say it much easier and break it down a lot better than me. I'm like, wait, people are like, I don't know what you're saying. You're like way out there on the ethers. I know. Because
We love
I want to work with the
where
people
you
who
are.
want to be enlightened. I want to be like, yeah, let's go with the advanced thing. Yeah. So good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of blame culture and there's a lot of victim culture. And what are your thoughts around that then?
Oh man, we live in such a polarized time, and people, I always say it's like you can only get offended to the extent to which you're not happy within yourself. So I think there's a lot of people, what it shows for me is that there's a lot of people that just aren't happy right now. I mean, when people get triggered about silly stuff, it's just that they're just frustrated with their own life. So you really can't take it personal, and you have to like really come from a compassionate state of realizing like, everybody's looking to point the finger. In the East with the wars, everyone's looking to point the finger at the other, culture. And the truth is that it has nothing to do with either of those cultures. It actually has to do with people at the very, very top that have decided they want to have world domination, and they're using people as puppets. Okay, so we have to look at the bigger picture. When somebody gets triggered or they make you wrong, like get curious, like, what would make somebody really actually get triggered by that? There's probably something massively going on beyond what's happening, right? And I think that that's the beautiful thing about the trauma-informed world, is that the people that are in prison, even criminals, come from massive trauma backgrounds. So it doesn't mean we don't put the law on. It doesn't mean we don't put people, in jail that are doing harm to people. But we also have to come from compassion and know everybody's been through a lot, and everyone is dealing with things we have no idea. Everyone's going through something, right? Be nice to everybody.
So, what are your thoughts then on righteous anger? Because you mentioned the war in the East and people being used as puppets. Is there a place for righteous anger and
Sure. All
for the
emotions, there's
injustices?
wisdom to come off of all emotions. So we actually train. So one of the processes that I love so much is really, it's called an upset worksheet. And it really is like, say you're angry, okay? So anytime I'm angry or upset, that is my higher self reflecting through and trying to guide me back to truth, okay? So that means I want to transcend and transform that anger. So I'll ask, in this process, we ask ourselves over and over again, regarding the situation, what am I angry about? Regarding the situation, what am I upset about? And as we do that, we're birthing our truth, okay? So anger is birthing the truth. Anger is actually, if you think about it, all emotions, you're the creator of your emotions, and all emotions are created from consciousness. Okay, so if I'm angry, that's actually the consideration that something is standing in my way of what I want to create. If I have grief, it means it's the consideration that something that I value has gone away. If I have apathy, it's the consideration that nothing matters, right? It's all created in mind. So anger is created from something within you, of a consideration that something's outside of you, which means you're going to be disempowered. So we want to know that anger, say it's like, hey, something about the war, right? What is your truth around it then? Is it that you don't believe something should change politically? Well, then you need to get in politics, right? What is the anger? Is it that, man, people don't care and they're not posting enough on social media, which I've seen people do? Well, then start a campaign on social media about it. Whatever it is that is your truth, then do it. But having the anger and keeping the anger is actually hurting you. It's not doing anything. The point of the anger is to transform that, to birth your truth, to embody that truth, and to take inspired action around that truth and release the anger. But to stay angry is a self destruction. So it does no good unless it's transmuted.
Yeah, let your anger be a catalyst for the change that you desire to see. Yeah. When did you, so you had your stillbirth at 22 years old, and you said that ultimately that ended up being the greatest gift because you were aware that the spirit of your baby wasn't the body of your baby. I'm curious, when did you decide to become a doctor of divinity? Like, was that the start? Yeah, when did you decide? And were the two
Sure.
situations
So I'm not
related?
religious, first of all. I am spiritual and not religious, by choice. And it's a great question. So someone who's out there is like, what is a doctor of divinity? Because if you look it up, it is religious from the standpoint of a lot of the definitions out there. But our divinity is our unity. It's like the divine. It's the vine that connects all of us. And the core principle that I teach through the lineage of New Thought, Ancient Wisdom, of understand that we are truth, that truth lives within us, and for our relationship with Source is within. That you don't need to go to a church, you don't need to have a religion to be that. Okay. So divinity is really recognizing the divine power and creator that we are, and that we're one with everything and everyone. So what happened is, it's a great question. I love that. So I was actually on a rooftop downtown Los Angeles. I was in a very codependent relationship with a famous rock star. I had been doing tons of
Can we
work.
get a name
Yeah, yeah.
for?
I have like so much juice, right? So much good drama along the way. And I had been doing spiritual and consciousness work for a very long time. I had gotten my 9 rights in shamanism with all natural. I don't do plant medicine, and I celebrate anyone that does. It's just not my path. And I had done so much work, and I was on top of this building after discovering that he had fallen off the wagon and cheated on me for the umpteenth time with another woman in some hotel. And I was just like, please, universe, use me for the highest good. Use my life for healing myself and healing others. And I just declared in that to really hand my life over to this work. I'd already been doing it for many, many years, but I was like, in that interim of like, I had a separate life from my spiritual work, right? It was like, I want my entire life to just be this. I want every breath that I take to be my work for my divinity, for my oneness, my life's work to heal my codependency and help other people really find the truth of who they are. And it was just a natural thing. I had gone to what's called Science of Mind spiritual centers and realized that how the universal law works. And I just decided. I called it was a minister because it was considered church. I guess you could say, and I just declared I want to do the whole program. I had to become a spiritual practitioner, which was a 2 or 3 year program, and then a minister of 2 years, and then go on to the Doctor of Divinity for a couple more years. So it just was like I was doing the work anyway. I was spending every day obsessed with the work and taking every course and taking whatever. So I was like, well, I might as well actually, do this formally. And so that was it. Handed my life over to. I've never questioned my mission since. It's like easier once you're committed. It's easy. It's when you're not committed, as you know, probably that it's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's called hell, right? When you fully get into it, it's like, okay, this is actually way easier. And that's the mission. When your mission's born, you get a call, and it doesn't matter if I don't feel like it one day. It doesn't matter if I get burned out. It doesn't matter anything. It's my mission. It's who I am. It's the greatest blessing for sure. How about you?
When did I know that this was the path? It's funny because I was in an interview today and she asked me a similar question, and I was going to say, and I think probably have up until today always said, it kind of, well, chose me. It was an accident, it wasn't intentional. I didn't know that this was where I was going. But today, with the hindsight of being in this world for the last 10 years and understanding just a little bit more how life works, I was on this path. I don't know why I feel emotional, but I was on this path really from the beginning. Like, I remember, and earlier on I talked about being 19 when my foster mother passed away, but I remember being on the side of my bed at 8 years old in my foster home and thinking, wow, I am so blessed to have two sets of parents. Like, wow, lucky me. And I think that for an 8 year old, I don't know whether that is a strange concept, because when I look at my daughter Aluna, who's 7, actually I could imagine her saying something like that. She's full of light. But for a long time, when I reflected on that moment, it was an interesting awareness to have, that I could be blessed and that I had been chosen not once but twice. And so my relationship with source and spirit and a higher power, that feels like it has been with me forever. And then when my mother passed away, that was the invitation to really look at, who are you being, where do you want to go, what do you want to create. And so I think that there have been choice points. Then when my son was born, it was like, what are you doing, who are you being, what do you want to create, what's the model that you desire to be. And so whilst I didn't know what the transmission was going to be, the calling for something better and higher and to live into my fullest has been there since the beginning.
What I love is I truly believe that our callings are in our name. And Ashworth, right? I mean, you're helping a lot of women in particular discover their self worth and hence claiming their abundance of infinite, prosperity in all aspects of their life. And I love that so much. And, experiencing you in person and being around you at retreats, and you are such a light. You are really authentic, and I just, you just know when people are on the right path, or they're not. You're like, something's off, right? You're just so on path, and it's really beautiful to witness. And I know you're helping so many just by your divine presence. And I think, just like what you were just saying, that when do you choose it? It chooses you, and it is spoken through, as you know, in the depths of meditation, in the depths of merging with divine, in the depths of the yoga within, of merging from the individual self to the divine self. It chooses you. How much you deny that is up to you, but it chooses you. It's just like love. Like, you can't, when love chooses you, you have to surrender to the love. And it's the beautiful thing. It's more about a surrender than choosing it, I think.
Yeah. I'm curious because I love the way, and actually, you are one of the few people that when you talk about your mission, that there really is no separation between yourself and your work. Like, it really does feel the integration is there completely. It's complete and utter embodiment. And I'm curious, do you need to, when there is such deep integration, remind yourself of what the legacy is that you want to leave? Like, is that a constant centering point for you,
Mm.
or not so much anymore?
I think it used to be. I think before the pandemic, it was a much more, I think it was much more attached to it egoically, honestly. Like, I think it was much more like, oh, this whole vision of like everything. And now I just feel that, I feel like the values are shifting so much across the entire industry, where we realize that feeling good and taking care of ourselves trumps any, like, let me get out the next book, let me get whatever. Like, what is the most important thing is to be tapped into source. And there's times when I'm like, wow, I am, a world renowned spiritual leader, and I'm feeling the least spiritual I have forever, because it's like, you get so into the work sometimes. So I think the vision for me has changed dramatically. It's not so much about where it's going, it's about how much I'm in that divine power and enjoying the divine presence, and knowing that, of course, it's going to go out exponentially when you're in that place. And it actually is the opposite. Like, when I focus too much on the vision, it messes me up, you know? So just got to stay right here, right now, as Ram Dass would say, who mentors me from the other side, who is like my BFF, um, and um, and just staying present and having a lot of compassion for the self, for sure. Hmm.
So what does that mean then when you think about this year? Have you set goals? Have you set intentions, or not?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I believe are both. So I always train my girls also to have 2 feet on Mother Earth, and one, your consciousness way out in the ethers. So I always do, whenever I'm doing visioning and goal setting, I do it at, of course, the beginning of the year and each quarter, and calling in the vision from the higher self, but also placing it tangibly in goals. So there's very specific goals I want to accomplish this year, and I say that or something greater, but without attachment to it, right? So I'm looking at what's the, as Gary Keller would say in the book, The One Thing. What's the one thing that I can do this year, such that by doing it will either take away a lot of things to do or take a quantum leap, basically. And we have to each ask ourselves and put it down on the calendar with specific actionable things, but also staying open to the miracles, because as we know, it never goes exactly how we plan on our calendar, our goals at all. But yeah, I believe in both doing deep prayer, which is not prayer to a man in the sky, but prayer to open up the consciousness for the miracle to happen, and also getting very tangible, for sure. And that's the cool thing about these businesses, right? They really demand us to stay in the human realm, right? Mhm. My one thing, honestly, is to automate as much as possible. So I did experience quite a bit of burnout. So it's a lot of automation of building team. And instead of thinking about scaling, it's all about automation. So really handing things off to AI, handing things off to, I have incredible VAs across the world, handing things off with PR, handing things off with everything. I believe that that is our we create. I'm a creator. I love to create, but if I don't have the seventh day to relax and automate, then it doesn't work. So my one thing is automation. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to talk to you before we
How about you?
finish.
What's your one thing?
Oh, my theme of the year is devotion. And so for
I
me,
love that so
that,
much. I remember seeing that. Hmm.
yeah,
Well, that is my one
just,
thing. I mean, if you're talking about business or you're talking about like my one thing always is just to be source, devotion to source, and to be used in that fashion. From a business perspective, it's automation, but devotion for sure. I love that. I saw that on your stories. Like that is so beautiful. Hmm.
yeah, devotion is the thing. And then in business, actually, it's simplification. I think that it's simplifying the foundations. And I think that it's too easy to get overcomplicated and to be looking at this shiny thing and that shiny thing and add this and add that and add this and add this and add this. And it's like, let's not undervalue the basics and make sure that we are hitting those foundational pillars daily and see how you get to build momentum from that solid place. So that is 2024 for me, devotion and simplification.
We're like the
Hmm.
same.
I
We have the exact same like goals for this year. As I was bringing in the new year, I was praying and meditating that night with a dear girlfriend, one of my best friends. And yeah, I mean the only intention for 2024 is to have deep commune with source and have that be my primary focus all day long. From a business perspective, I always am just asking, how is that going to support that? You know, because if I don't have my relationship very strong with source, nothing works, and my powers actually start getting taken away, and it is just a battle. It's a battle. So as a CEO, I would say the best thing and the most important thing we do is our commune with source. And in fact, talking about the Aquarian age, which I know is a big buzz topic right now, we are going into the Aquarian age. We've actually started going into it from the 60s, but we're going more and more into it, and we'll begin to go into it for about 2,000 years now. And the Aquarian age is not necessarily about water. The water aspect of metaphysics, if you will, represents the subconscious and represents the source. Basically, the subconscious is one with the superconsciousness. So the Aquarian age is really about us having to really merge more and more with that, because it's called the technology era. So we have so much AI, so much technology, and that the one faculty that we're really going to have to develop to survive is our intuition. Because if we keep looking to the technology, we'll get used and we'll become addicted to the technology, and we'll get completely, people will really go mentally insane and a lot of people will become more and more depressed. So the real key to it, as someone who is claiming their infinite abundance, is being able to be tapped into your intuitive factor and being able to know how to navigate these things inspirationally instead of following the masses. We will have to build that true intuition and that true spiritual relationship to be able to survive these times. So very important, super important.
I had a really beautiful conversation with a woman called Simone Heng, and we were talking about loneliness, authenticity, and connection. And we had the same but different awareness come up. And that is, in order to thrive in the next generations and for the next generations, your ability to interact with other humans, not just your screen, not just your phone, your ability to be able to intuit how someone else is feeling, your capacity to be able to access the emotional intelligence needed to hold a group space and understand how people are feeling and all of those things. It's the same conversation, because so much will be automated, so much will be put on technology, that to be human and to understand what it means to be human in a technologically based world is going to become more and more valuable across every single level. So, thank you for again reinforcing that. Really important. Um, I'm interested when you say commune with source. as much as possible. What does that look like when you're actually in prayer? What does your prayer process look like?
Sure. So there's kind of two places, as we know, in communing, which is to be one with. Is one, we a lot of talk about the neurological system and regulating the neurological system. Okay, imagine that there is a point. We call it 0 point or the field in science, and in spirituality we call it the divine God presence within. Same thing. Okay, and in that 0 point, it goes into the oneness of all of life. It's the field. It is where quantum physics shows and proves through the Nobel Prize of 2022 that there is an entanglement, that there's one with everything. When you communicate in that place, it is transcending through all space and time. And likewise, all the information of all space and time is communicated with you. Okay. So, what does that look like? That looks like one, we've got to learn how to regulate our nervous system to imagine that it's trying to communicate, source is trying to communicate, but it has all this noise, all the frequency of the neurological system all whacked out. So you can't hear it, you can't receive the messages, right? So we want to get into that place as much as possible. We do that through breath work to calm down and have a heart rate variability and calm down the nervous system. We do that through beginning to go into either mantras to begin to stabilize those frequencies so that we can get in there. And ideally, we're going into silent meditation. People are like, oh, I meditate all the time, and most of them are doing guided meditations. No, you've got to put your big girl pants on at some point in time and go into silent meditation, because in the silence, as they say, there is God, right? Not man in the sky, but the God source within. To get into that 0 point is in, you could say it in the theta state of hypnosis. It's all going to that 0 point. And in that 0 point is where we're communing with ourself that's outside of this dimension. It's the inner world. And when we get to that point, all intelligence, you'll get the downloads of the universe, and you can speak what you truly intend in there. And when we speak onto what we call, that's universal law at the core of that. And when you speak into universal law, you actually are placing your intention and you're moving the polarity of the entire universe. So this is where the miracles happen. This is where time stays. This is where you compress time. This is where you can manifest exponentially. So how do you do that? You want to do it at least morning and night, 20 minutes, ideally even longer than that. True masters will do it for a minimum of 10% of their day. The true tithing is not about giving money to your church. The true tithing is taking 10% of your day, 2.5 hours, to actually commune with source. And if you did 2.5 hours, you would be a master and be able to have things manifest exponentially, right? And manifesting is not about getting anything, it's about becoming the highest version of yourself. So, what does that look like? That looks like having a practice of meditation and prayer. Prayer is not to a man in the sky. Prayer is not about getting anything, it's about becoming everything. So, prayer is about expanding consciousness again into that 0 point to be able to receive all the blessings, receive all the wisdom, and release everything that's not true of who you are. Coming back to the true identity of the I am that I am and the pure potential of the creator that you are. There's your answer. You asked.
Thank you. I'm so sad because I know that you have to go really soon. I'm like,
I
I want to
know.
go deeper. I want to go deeper. Listen, I have six
We'll have to do it
questions
again.
that
I'll
I
have to
am
have you on my
asking.
podcast too.
I would love to. I have six questions I'm asking everybody to celebrate the release of this
Oh, cool.
beautiful, beautiful book. It's
Gorgeous, gorgeous book.
coming.
Congratulations. Hmm.
Thank you so much. I love the way we speak a very, very similar language, and it just is who you are. When I say the words infinite receiving, what does infinite receiving mean to you?
Infinite receiving to me means the blessings of our divinity, which means that we come to understand that we are all of life and that we instantaneously become trillionaires. We instantaneously know that everything that's been created on this planet was created for us to receive it. The technology that's in front of us took trillions of dollars to create. It's ours, right? Infinite receiving is really opening up consciousness to know the truth that right here, right now, you are already infinitely blessed. Mm-hmm.
Yes. How good are you at knowing that truth on a moment by moment basis?
I mean, it's all I know now. But that took many, many years of building that muscle. And when you become a spiritual practitioner, you're building it over and over again, and then you can't see anything but truth. Doesn't matter what's happening, you know that it is all for growth and all for blessings.
Where in your life or who in your life can you allow to love you just a little bit more right now?
That's a good question. I would say always the self, because the only way I can receive love from anybody else is to really, really know the truth of the love for myself. So the only way for anyone else to love me more is for me to love myself more. Hmm.
What is your greatest attribute, Dr. Erin?
My big attribute.
Your greatest attribute.
I think I heard you. It's a little hard to hear sometimes. The my greatest attribute, is that what you said? Yeah. Hmm. I would say, I mean, of course, I think it's just who we are is our greatest attribute. That's really what people remember. They remember how we made them feel, you know? But I would say that one of my biggest attributes is I'm really good at distilling down truth and putting it into processes for people to be able to transform the truth into their reality is one of my biggest gifts. But I think that what would be a better attribute really would be for me to just have people feel the best they can feel around me for sure, which is something I'm working on, you know? It's something I'm working on more and more.
Well, the next question is, what is one thing that you are consciously manifesting right now,
Hmm.
aside from that?
One thing I'm consciously manifesting. Well, easy, but what we just talked about, which is basically, of course, just communing more and more with source, of course, always, and automating and simplifying. Those are two things. I think that what I really am out of those things is manifesting a divine life, manifesting a life heaven on earth, you know, really truly being able to have the dark and the light, but be able to every day do the things what I love to do, watch the sunrise, have moments with girlfriends and walks, have my time with source, be able to infinitely create my business to help others know truth. So that's my highest, and a grandchild.
Yay.
Hmm.
And final question. Where in your life could you allow yourself to be a little more supported right now?
Mm, that's a really good question too. Um, I think in communities, I think that communities are really important, and that I still get into let me do this on my own. You know, let me do this all instead of allowing myself to just be in community and allow the blessings of a community come through where you give to people, they're giving to you, and there's just a much more of a synergistic way. And I'm in a lot of communities, but I feel like I could do that more for sure. I isolate and I'm kind of like a scientist with the work sometimes, and I think that just to infinitely receive more through all of the communities for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Would you let my beautiful listeners know where they can find out more about your brilliant work?
Yes. Yes, I have so many gifts for you guys. Everything from money breakthrough series, audio series, and journal prompts for that. I have free 52 awakening spiritual. Can you see that? It's universal law spiritual awakening audios that come with this. You don't have to buy the cards. You can just get all the audios and journals on that. So much to give you guys. I have a book, Awakening, with 40 guided meditations with this, with journal prompts with that as well. So you can grab all of that either at drerin.tv, which is DRERIN.tv. Or you can go on my social media with Erin Fall Haskell or Spiritual Psychology School. You can grab my podcast as well, Dr. Erin Show, and binge. I have everything from series on universal law, series on coaching, series on everything, and come on in the community. And I think it's like let's all come together with everything, and just the abundance of community, abundance of girlfriends, abundance of friends, abundance of wealth, abundance of all of it. So I just want to say thank you so much, Susie. You are such a light, and I can't wait to have you on my podcast as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you deeply. And if you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have, do me a favor, tag us on social media. You know, I really appreciate that. And share this episode with at least one person you know that would benefit greatly from hearing Dr. Erin's wisdom today. And in the meantime, please remember that faith plus action equals miracles.
Thank you for listening to Infinite Receiving with me, Susie Ashworth. I'd love to share with you my Infinite Receiving activation audio. Go to susieashworth.com/activate infinite receiving.